So we've been together a few months now, but during this time, there were a lot of early signs, aka red flags, that this wasn't going to be a great relationship. And over the years, I've kind of categorized them into three main behaviors. Number one, very early on, he started to be quite aggressive. Now, initially, he wasn't aggressive to me, but he was aggressive to other people around us. So one time, we took a trip to Atlantic City. I'd gone to visit him on the East Coast, and we were with a bunch of his friends. And I remember him drinking quite a bit, but I mean, most people were in the group. And he started to get really rowdy as the night went on, get aggressive with like people next to us. He said something odd like, "Are you looking at my girlfriend?" I was like, this is weird because I don't think they were. They then told security guards, and then when they turned up, he got really aggressive and in their faces. And then when his friends tried to calm him down, he got really aggressive with them. But at this point, I was just backing up. And I'm not good in aggressive situations, and this was not for me. Then I remember him being quite aggressive with his parents when we were at their house, speaking to them quite rudely and taking things either out of context or taking things too far. Red flag, red flag. The second behavior I saw was kind of some very, the only way I can describe it is weird behavior. Like I mentioned in the first episode, he was quite into this online world of enlightenment, believing that you have this higher calling and things on earth aren't as they seem. And he was getting very wrapped up in this. And at the time, I was very young and stupid, and initially I palmed it off as like, oh, I've never met a guy like this before. Young and stupid Laura. And I kind of made out that these things weren't big deals because up until that point, he was still being very lovely with me. And at that point, he was still being very lovely with my family. That did get progressively worse over time, spoiler alert. That was another behavior initially that I was like, should have caught that one, Laura. And then the third behavior, which I didn't initially notice because it wasn't there, which started around the 6-month period and progressed and got worse up until our breakup, kind of degrading behavior towards me and my family. During this time, I actually ended up getting a job as a flight attendant, and I moved to the Middle East, and we did a long distance relationship. The move to the Middle East? Blessing in disguise. During this time when I was in the Middle East and he was on the East Coast of the US, true colours started to be shown here. I remember one time it was Christmas Eve and a bunch of me and my friends weren't flying anywhere for Christmas, so we all decided we'd get like dolled up and go out for like a nice meal. And I was Skyping him just before we left. He'd obviously been drinking again. He was just putting me down about how I looked. I looked trashy, and then he eventually transpired to saying that I looked like a lady of the night. Didn't use those words, obviously. And I just put the Skype down. I was like, I'm done with this. Anyway, I think a couple of days later, because I didn't want to talk to him, he apologized, said he didn't mean it, said he'd been drinking, that he was finding long distance difficult, that he missed me, blah, 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 blah. That started to happen a lot more frequently. Him speaking in a degrading manner towards me. I remember I had a week off. I had a week's leave from being a flight attendant, and I went back to London, and he met me in London. And again, same thing, speaking really rudely about what I was wearing, about my body, about makeup I was wearing, how I'd done my hair, sort of quite degrading behaviour that I was like, I think we're done here. So then I went back to the Middle East after that week of leave. He went back to the East Coast, and it was during that time frame that he completely lost his shit. Quite degrading about me to my family. And the cherry on top of this very toxic cake was that he called my father when I was in the Middle East, just in the process of quitting being a flight attendant because I didn't align with the airline anymore. And he called my father, told my father that not only was I not a flight attendant, I was working in the Middle East as a lady of the night, and I was pregnant. This is it. We're done now. We're done here. I quit my job. I got back to the UK. I called him and I was like, we're not doing this anymore. You can't speak to me this way. You can't harass my family in this way. At the time, he took the breakup really, really well. He was like, okay, yeah, fine, we'll break up. This is so easy. I remember even telling my mom at the time, I was like, broke up with him. He took it really well. And that was a red herring. Stubbornly, I still moved to the 1 square mile town where he lived because that was my plan, and I wanted to work in New York City and try and get work in TV production. So despite breaking up with him, I still moved to the town where he lived. Why, Laura? And that's when the really scary shit started to happen.